It was August of 2023, one of those central Austin afternoons where the heat rises in visible waves and everything feels slightly unreal, like the world is simmering. I pulled my 2003 Miata into a classic car shop for a state inspection. Dust, chrome, smell of old rubber and hot pavement. Routine, ordinary. And standing beside me was a man, when I got out of my Miata, that was probably about 4 years my senior, leaning against his European luxury vehicle that spoke, well, it spoke in a quiet dialect of wealth. He wore an MIT t-shirt, even though I learned later he really was an Aggie engineer, which told me something about identity that day. It's not what he was, but what he was signaling. Well, he had, as I learned, participated in the IPO of a company that changed the world. He himself had patents. He had founded companies. He had done what America calls winning. And as he talked, I could feel the invisible architecture around him. Not just his intellect, but the insulation, the certainty, the story that he lived inside. Well, I stood there thinking about something that maybe shouldn't have been in that garage at all. A Cuban fisherman in a skiff, a patched sail, a boy carrying gear barefoot through the dark. The kind of life that has no place in an AI age like we have today, unless you understand what it really represents. I'm Mark Roach. This is Transcendent. My life has forced me into rooms of money and rooms of pain, into systems that reward performance, and into private moments where performance collapses and something truer is left standing. Today, let's look at Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea and pull it into the present in a way that exposes a shadow our culture is often avoiding. And by the end, you'll understand three things. First, why our fear of AI is often a disguised fear of being ordinary again. Second, why struggle is not an inconvenience, but the engine of meaning. And third, why the boy and why the old man together may be the most important technology that we have left. This comes from lived experience and from Hemingway's brutal tenderness, where everything is simple and nothing is easy. Hemingway opens with a sentence so plain it feels like a stone in your hand. Santiago he's fished 84 days without taking a fish. And the boy who had been with him was forced by his parents into another boat. The village calls Santiago Salio, the worst form of unlucky. And Hemingway does something that modern culture doesn't know how to do anymore. He lets the shame sit there without rushing to fix it. He lets failure be visible, not as an inspirational story, as a fact. And then he gives you the image that should haunt anyone living through that algorithmic age. The old man comes in each day with his skiff empty, and the boy goes down to help him carry the coiled lines and the gaff and the harpoon and the sail that is furled along the mast. And the sail, Hemingway says, is patched with flour sacks. And when it's furled, it looks like the flag of permanent defeat. That line is not a metaphor, it's a diagnosis. Here's why this matters. We live in a culture that cannot tolerate the flag of permanent defeat. We hide it. We medicate it. We band our way around it, or brand our way around it. We call it a pivot, call it reinvention. We call it content. But Hemingway just calls it what it is. A man who has lost publicly, repeatedly, and is still going out. Now watch how he does the next thing. Hemingway describes Santiago as thin and gaunt, brown blotches on his cheeks from the sun's reflection, hands scarred from heavy lines. But then he says everything about him was old except his eyes. They were the same color as the sea and were cheerful and undefeated. This is the entire thesis of this story. The body deteriorates, reputation collapses, the village laughs, but the eyes stay undefeated. If you want the third dimension that's missing from most conversations about artificial intelligence and meaning, it's this. Santiago is not a symbol. He's a nervous system. He's a hunger. He is loneliness. He is pride that has been stripped down until only the true part remains. There's a moment early on that most people miss, and it's the moment that brings the whole book into the present. The boy asks what he has to eat, and Santiago says there's a pot of yellow rice with fish. But Hemingway tells you the truth under the words. There was no pot of yellow rice and fish, and the boy knew this too. They go through the fiction anyway. This is a collective shadow right there. The mutual agreement not to name the emptiness directly, because naming it would break something delicate between them. But the boy knows. And the old man knows that the boy knows. And love is what keeps them from humiliating each other with the truth. Now take that moment and tell me you don't see our world in it. We are surrounded by fictions we repeat to stay psychologically intact. We tell ourselves the economy is fine. We tell ourselves the institutions work. We tell ourselves we're doing great. We tell ourselves we have time. We tell ourselves we are safe because we are useful. But beneath it, the pot is empty and everyone can feel it. Stay with me here because this is where it gets crucial. AI isn't just a new tool. It is the ultimate fiction machine. It can generate the appearance of competence, the appearance of meaning, the appearance of intimacy, the appearance of art. And if your identity is built on appearances, AI will feel like a salvation. But if your soul is built on what's real, AI will feel like a threat because it reveals how much of our lives have been lived as performance. So Hemingway gives us a counter reality, the reality of the body, the reality of the sea, the reality of hunger and weather and fatigue. Santiago goes out before its light. He rows into the Gulf Stream in the dark. He watches birds, he watches plankton, he sets the lines with precision, and he thinks something that should be tattooed onto the forehead of every modern person trying to outsource their life to technology. It is better to be lucky, but I would rather be exact. Then when the luck comes, you are ready. That's not just fishing, that's character. Now we step into the part of the story everyone remembers. He hooks the marlin, and the first thing Hemingway gives you is not triumph, it's responsibility. Santiago feels the line delicately. He lets it slip through his fingers. He talks to the fish, and then the fish begins to tow him. And he says the line that turns the entire book into a human prayer. Fish, I'll stay with you until I am dead. That is the vow of presence. It is the vow that cannot be automated. No one should be alone in their old age, Santiago thinks, but it is unavoidable. And then he does what humans do when they're truly alone. He starts speaking aloud. He speaks to the fish. He speaks to his hand when it cramps. He speaks to the small bird that rests on his line. He makes company out of reality. There's a moment where the fish makes a sudden lurch and Santiago's hand is bleeding. He says, "You're feeling it now, fish. And so, God knows, am I." This is the opposite of the modern posture. Modern life tries to anesthetize pain. Hemingway's old man turns toward it and stays coherent inside it. Not because he enjoys suffering, but because suffering is part of what's real. Here's the key point. What Santiago is doing out there is not work. It's a job. It's not a job. It's not work. It's not a job. It's not productivity. It is a contest with reality itself. And his dignity, it's on the line. And that is exactly what the AI age threatens to remove. Not labor in the economic sense, but the existential function of labor, the way effort binds you to the world and binds you to yourself. When AI makes the world frictionless, we imagine we are gaining freedom, but what we are maybe is losing the very texture that creates meaning. Santiago's world has texture. Rope bites into the flesh, salt water stings, the sun burns, the body complains, and the mind has to become a disciplined instrument or he dies. Then, at the end, Hemingway doesn't give you a motivational ending. He gives you the skeleton. Santiago lashes the fish to the skiff and tries to bring him home. Then the first shark hits. Hemingway says the shark was not an accident. That line is so cold, so true. It feels like a prophecy. Because that's how life is. The sharks are never an accident. The system is not an accident. Predation is not an accident. If you bring something beautiful into a world that runs on appetite, appetite will come. Santiago fights anyway. He lashes his knife to an oar. He says, "Now, I am still an old man, but I am not unarmed." And that's moral resistance, not optimism, not denial, resistance. But eventually the pack comes. The fight becomes useless. He loses the club. He loses the tiller. He can't hardly breathe. And then Hemingway gives you one of the most honest lines about defeat ever written. Santiago thinks, "It is easy when you are beaten. I never knew how easy it was." That is not weakness. That is the strange surrender that comes when you have truly done everything that you could. And then the final humiliation, Tourists at the terrace look down and see the backbone of the great fish and ask what it is. The waiter says essentially, shark. The tourist woman says she didn't know how sharks had such beautifully formed tails. The entire human story is reduced to a misunderstanding. Now bring that back to this garage that I was in Austin. The man in the MIT shirt, the luxury car, the confidence of a winner's circle. In him, I saw a certain kind of modern tourist, not unintelligent, not evil, but insulated, trained to measure value by outcomes, trained to believe that merit explains everything, trained to forget the hidden architecture that makes winning possible. And in myself, standing there, I saw a different temptation, the temptation to resent, to collapse complex reality into a simple villain, to make him a shark so I don't have to face the shark in me. Here's why this matters. AI is going to amplify the tourist part of the collective, the part that consumes meaning without earning it, the part that wants the trophy without the cost, the part that wants the appearance of wisdom without the internal transformation that creates wisdom. And it's also going to amplify the shark part of the collective, the part that smells blood and moves toward it, the part that sees displacement as efficiency, the part that calls human suffering creative destruction, the part that looks at a man rowing back with a skeleton and says basically, that's unfortunate, and returns to their comfort. If you want the third dimension, it's this. Hemingway does not let you stay abstract. He makes you inhabit the inner life of a man who is too old, too alone, too poor, and still goes. He makes you sit beside the boy who loves him and goes through the daily frictions to protect dignity. He makes you smell the harbor. He makes you feel the patched sail. He makes you watch the tourist misunderstand the bones. At the end, the boy comes back. The boy cries. Tell Santiago, the fish, they will fish together again. He asks, how much did you suffer? And Santiago says, plenty. That exchange is the human future, not plenty as a badge, but plenty as truth. Plenty as honest cost of being alive, plenty as the admission that you cannot do this alone and that dignity is not built by pretending that it didn't hurt. If you want to remain human in the AI age, you have to choose a marlin that requires your actual presence, not your branding, not your automation, not presence. You have to build a life where there are still places that the machine cannot go because it cannot pay the price of being you. The soul cannot be automated. The soul for meaning cannot be outsourced. And if the sharks come, you do not get to control whether they come. You only get to control whether you row anyway. If this hits you in the chest and you can feel that you're standing at a personal edge where your old identity is no longer enough, I'm available, not to motivate you, but to help you choose what's real and to build a structure that can hold you as you become it. If you're not ready for that, bookmark this and come back when life proves what you really already know inside. I'm Mark Roach. This is Transcendent, wishing you all the best. The world will keep mistaking skeletons for sharks until someone teaches them what dignity looks like when it comes back with nothing. This is Transcendent, wishing you all the best.